My hope is found here on holy ground. Here I bow down, here I bow down, here. Arms open wide, here. You saved my life. Here I bow down, here I bow. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you, in all of you, where your love ran red and my sin washed white. I owe all to you, 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 Jesus. Oh, how good it is when the family of God dwells together in spirit, in faith and unity, where the bonds of peace, of acceptance and love are the fruit of His presence here among us. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out His word till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for He dwells in the presence of His people. Oh, how good it is on this journey we share, to rejoice with the happy and weep with those who mourn. For the weak find strength, the afflicted find grace, when we offer the blessing of belonging. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out His word, till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for He dwells in the presence of His people. Oh, how good it is to embrace His command, to prefer one another, forgive as He forgives. When we live as one, we all share in the love of the Son with the Father and the Spirit. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out His word, till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for He dwells in the presence of His people. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out His word, till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for He dwells in the presence of His people. For He dwells in the presence of His people. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. precious altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. And in keeping of them there is great reward, there is great reward. And in keeping of them there is great reward. Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest, and without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you.
I made two people jump. I made someone jump back there without the mic, and I made my daughter jump with the mic. So that's a win. Good to see everyone here this evening, especially those of you who are with us as visitors. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank everyone who filled in for me while I was gone this last weekend, especially Bink, who preached on Sunday. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that lesson, or even if you did, go back and listen to it again. It was just a wonderful lesson that he delivered. I want to also thank Don Osborne for teaching my Bible class, and Paul for speaking on Sunday evening. Thank you guys so much. Great to be back with you and bring greetings from folks in the Mid-Ohio Valley. We do want to keep some folks in prayer. Kay Pittman is not only recovering from surgery, but is here tonight, so we're thankful that she's feeling well, and want to keep her in prayers. Vernell, going to be having knee surgery in less than a week. I think next Tuesday. She's up. Let's keep her in prayers. David Latta, to my knowledge, is still waiting for results from a PET scan. Do we know anything else about that? Okay. So let's keep him in our prayers as well. Linda Dennis, longtime member here, past member here. Mindy Cunningham and Ellen Dennis's mother is in the hospital in Charlottesville. So let's keep her in prayers. Sandy Johnson has requested prayers for her brother-in-law's daughter, Betty Hall, who is hospitalized in Florida with COVID and pneumonia and has other health issues that complicate things. And let's not forget, we've been praying for Cindy Klein's first cousin, Bonnie Siegfried. She's in Prince William Hospital. Cindy's Aunt Amelia Musgrove, who was a one-time member here. This is her daughter. So let's keep her in prayers. And Janet has asked us to pray for Bailey Stager. The last update I had was that she was doing better, but I haven't had an update in a few days. And then Aaliyah Haynes brought her friend Anai Vasquez, who has had some tests, to our attention. We've been praying for her as well. Peggy Marshall is home, but is not doing well, and texted with Steve today. And she's continuing to be very weak and to fail. So let's keep our sister Peggy in our prayers. Let's not forget to be praying for Jairus, Bill McCusker. He's going to be scheduling an upcoming surgery. So many on our prayer list who are being treated for cancer under the category of continue to pray for. And then Blanca Lydia Rivera and Caitlin Coots are our expectant mothers. Let's be praying for them both. Let's not forget Gary and Masha are being married here, 11 o'clock Saturday morning. They've invited us all, so hope that you'll come. Details are in your announcements from tonight. Trunk or treats that evening, 5 to 7, and details also in your announcements, and a lot of activities. And we have a lot of support from the community for this event as well, and our mailing list of folks who come to visit us at Vacation Bible School, kids from our preschool, kids who come to Manassas Kids, so it's a real outreach. Hope that you'll be a part of that. It's a fifth Sunday this Sunday, so we're going to have a potluck, and there's an announcement about Last to Leaders. If their kids are doing Art Says It, there's going to be a meeting on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Senior Explorers have a hike coming up on the 4th. Ladies brunch on the 4th. Details about those things are in your announcements as well. And I believe we have a guest speaker, one of the missionaries that we support in Africa, who will be here Sunday evening, unless I am mistaken, and that's not unusual. So, but I think that's coming up as well. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Let's lift our voices together and sing praise to God.
Our first song this evening is going to be As the Deer Panteth for the Water. If you're using a book, it's 843. 843. As the deer panteth for the water. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. You are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You're my friend, and you are my brother, even though you are a king. I love you more than any other, so much more than anything. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. I want you more than gold or silver, only you can satisfy. You alone are the real joy giver, and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. Our song before our prayer tonight will be Where Could I Go But to the Lord? In the book, that's 745. Where could I go? Living below in this so sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford. Striving alone to face temptation sore, where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Oh, where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend to save me in the
Would you bow with me? Dear Lord Father, I thank you for this wonderful day you've blessed us with. I thank you for allowing us to be able to meet together, to learn more about you, to become stronger in your word, to be able to go into the world and to preach your word. Father, I ask that you will open our hearts and minds tonight as we are in class. Help us to learn from what our teachers say and to apply it to our life. Be with us as we go into the rest of this week. Help us to be that shining light to everyone around us. I ask all these things in your son's name I pray. Amen.
If Barry comes back and asks, I slid his bag of gummies over to the other side of the pew. That's just way too much temptation for me. Couldn't make it through. Okay. All right, we are in the book of Esther once again for chapter 7 plus the last verse of chapter 16. If you're ever curious about when they were writing down the books of the Bible, did they add the chapters? Did they add the verses? No, they did not. The books of the Bible are written straight through, no breaks, no pauses, just one continuous long word. That's why it's called the word of the Bible. It's just one long word. In the later Middle Ages, they added the chapters, and then in the 1500s, they added the verses by a guy who was traveling the roads of France on horseback, and he broke up the verses of the chapter to the pace of a riding horse. It's a true story. If you're ever curious about, how we get what we get, the answer is out there, and it is pretty strange. Okay, so we are in the book of Esther, chapter 7. Couple quick questions as we start. Who wrote the book of Esther? We don't know. Very good. When was Esther written? We are not sure. Very good. Okay. Esther and Mordecai are from what tribe? Benjamin, thank you. Haman is from what people? The Agagites. They are also called sometimes the Amalekites. We're going to bring that up a little bit later as well. We were talking about what empire? Persian Empire. Very good. And when we left off last week, what was Haman doing to Mordecai? He was honoring Mordecai against his will. That's a very good way of putting it. Okay, so when we left off last week, the king can't sleep, so he's reading he's going through his old logs. He's basically what you're doing when you can't fall asleep. You go through and you scroll back through your history on Facebook, or is that just me? Just me? Okay. And he realizes that he never honored Mordecai for saving his life. So he calls Haman in, Haman thinks that the king's about to honor him, so he plans out this elaborate thing that the king should do. And the king says, "Good idea, Haman. You should do that for Mordecai." That's exactly what you're going to do. So Mordecai, who is in the process of trying to wipe out the Jews, and Haman, who's in the process of trying to wipe out the Jews, and Mordecai specifically, has to go and present Mordecai before the people of the city as one whom the king favors. Then he does this for the whole day. He gets back to his home, and his friends and his wife are all looking at him and saying, "Okay, this is a bad idea. This whole revenge plan that you've had cooking for the last 6 chapters of the book here, this is a bad idea. We've got to stop that." So before anything else happens, before Haman can even get it into his head to possibly get out of there, we run into chapter 6, verse 14. "While they were yet talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried to bring Haman to the feast that Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman went in to feast with Queen Esther. And on the second day, as they were drinking wine after the feast, the king again said to Esther, 'What is your wish, Queen Esther? It shall be granted to you, and what is your request? Even to the half of my kingdom it shall be fulfilled.' Then Queen Esther answered, 'If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be granted me for my wish, and let my people for my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we had been sold merely as slaves, men and women, I would have been silent, for our affliction is not to be compared with the loss to the king.' Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, 'Who is he, and where is he who has dared to do this?' And Esther said, 'A foe and an enemy, this wicked Haman.' Then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen. And the king arose in his wrath from the wine drinking and went into the palace garden. But Haman stayed to beg for his life from Queen Esther, for he saw that harm was determined against him by the king. And the king returned from the palace garden to the place where they were drinking wine, as Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was. And the king said, 'Will he even assault the queen in my presence in my own house?' As the word left the mouth of the king, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs in attendance on the king, said, 'Moreover, the gallows that Haman has prepared for Mordecai, whose word saved the king, is standing at Haman's house, 50 cubits high.' And the king said, 'Hang him on that.' So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the wrath of the king was abated." That's what you call swift justice right there. So, this right now, as we've been going through the book of Esther, we've been talking about this as the story as it has progressed, as it has unfolded before us. We've seen the plots of Haman. We've seen Esther's resilience. We've seen Mordecai trying to survive, and now we come to the climax of the book. This is the point to which all of these plans, all of these schemes, all of these wicked twists of the mind that Haman is doing, this is what it's all leading up to, which is his own demise. You know, they say, what's the phrase, pride goes before the fall? Well, not more than 24 hours ago, Haman was so prideful that he said, I'm going to build a gallows myself to kill Mordecai. And now, less than a day after it's been built, Haman's the one who's hanging on the gallows. So what do we see in this chapter?
This that analogy you just gave of the change of Haman himself, the union power, is really seen across the entire empire. So if you rewind a little bit of time, I don't know, maybe a few weeks or so, you have Haman about to do away with kind of a whole demographic that's in political positions, at least with Mordecai and such, to where you're basically doing away with a whole section of what's involved politically. To now, you have an entire flip where, I mean, it's a couple chapters for us, but Mordecai is on the cusp of being the prime minister. The queen is going to be revealed to be Jewish, and the people are all going to have to make a choice pretty quick whether they're going to side with the Jews or the Haman faction. And we'll see they see the changing tides as well.
I'll see that in a couple of chapters. So why don't you hold on to that, or hold on to that, and if you're taking counts, that's another hold on to that.
This all started with Haman's ego, because Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. And he let his ego and his self-importance and his self-aggrandizement obscure reality and not value the king's subjects.
This was all based on Haman's own pride, his own
Arrogance.
arrogance, his own self-aggrandizement. He saw himself as equal to the king. He saw himself as, he saw that his words were the king's words. He saw in his own mind, he was on the level of the king. Remember what we talked about last week when Haman said, when he's talking to the king about the aggrandizement that's about to be done, he says, put the royal robe onto this person, thinking that it was himself. He saw himself as being a part of the king's family in his own mind. And with the last couple of chapters, we've seen this narrowing of Haman's focus just to get to Mordecai, because he wouldn't bow down before Haman, and it's blinded him to everything else. It's blinded him to the possibilities that he might be wrong, that he might be doing the wrong thing, or that it might even come back against him. Because I just want to bring it back here to the first part of this.
When we're in the feast with Queen Esther and with the queen, the king, and Haman, Haman is shocked. Haman is terrified when the queen says that it's Haman who's about to kill me and my people. Haman, I genuinely don't think it even entered his mind that the Queen Esther could possibly be related to Mordecai. And it's one of those things where when the arrogance, when it gets into your head, you think, okay, the queen and the king are the most powerful people in the kingdom. How could Mordecai be related to them? It doesn't even enter his mind as a possibility that Mordecai could be related to the queen. And we have this happening. I've been talking a lot about Haman, mostly because that's kind of the perspective this is written in for a little bit here. We've had after the pronouncement of Haman, we had it written in Mordecai's perspective for a little bit, what Mordecai was doing. Now, for the past couple of chapters, we're seeing what Haman's doing. We've been looking at things through Haman's mind, through Haman's perspective, and it's interesting to see what he's doing, what he's immediately thinking, and what he's thinking in his mind, and it's one of these really well-written Shakespearean level Shakespearean level parts of the book here is where the entirety of the people in the room that we know of is Haman, the queen, and the king. Haman, Esther, and the king. And the king up to this point, we know the king is quick to anger, and he is quick to action, and he relies on what other people are telling him. This is the queen telling him that Haman is about to kill her. And Haman is terrified because he knows what the wrath of the king could possibly lead to, which is his own death. And so so the king is so mad, so angry, so wrathful. The king is in his wrath, as the text says. He is so in his wrath that he rises up and he storms out of the room, not even saying anything, not even doing anything. He doesn't even trust himself not to do anything, and he just storms out from this. And immediately after the king leaves the room, Haman goes to the queen, Esther, and begs for his life. I still don't know that Haman really gets what he's doing. I still don't know that Haman really, I think that this is more shock than anything else. This hasn't really sunk in quite what Haman is doing, you know? He's trying to he's a drowning man trying to grab onto the first thing that's coming to hand, trying to beg for the queen's mercy. And it's just, you can see this happen. You can see this play out. And as soon as the king leaves, he comes back in and he sees Haman grabbing the queen, and the queen's just told the king that Haman's about to kill her, and he comes back in and Haman's grabbing the queen. What do you think is running through his mind? Haman's not waiting around. He's going to kill the queen in my own presence. Yeah, Pat.
Far past it. I just want to commend Esther for just beautiful plea for her life here. The king asked her, what would you like to have my kingdom? And she just wild praising him in every line while being so humble about the whole thing. Please, if you could just grant me my life. That's all I want. And she even offers as a comparison, if I were just going to be sold off as a slave and carried away, I wouldn't have even said anything. Because, your loss would be greater than mine. But, in this one case, it's perfect. It's beautiful. I mean, this could not write a better story.
Actually, bring us back, because I want
to dig into that as well. I want to dig into this part of Esther's plea. Just like we saw with Mordecai talking to Esther, when Mordecai is talking to Esther previously, we saw even if you don't do something, help will come from the Lord. Help will come from another place. When Esther's pleading for her life, when Esther's pleading for herself and the life of the Jews, it says, "If we had been sold merely as slaves, men and women, I would have been silent, for our affliction is not to be compared with the loss to the king." It's important at this point to remember, where are we?
sold off as slaves, where is this book taking place? Susa. Where is Susa? Where in the kingdom of Israel is Susa? It is not. It is about as far away physically. It is as physically far away. Susa is the furthest place
away in the Bible that we read, that we actually have something set. The other place that's as physically far is Rome from Jerusalem. It's the same distance. When Paul goes from Jerusalem, when Paul is journeying from Jerusalem to Rome, it's the same distance that the Jewish people have gone in the Persian Empire, from Jerusalem to Susa, just in the opposite direction. It is nowhere near Judea. This is nowhere near the land of her people. This is not Israel. This is not Judea. This is not where her people are from. She is a stranger in a strange land, and she is telling the king, we're about to die. If we had been sold into slavery, I wouldn't say anything, because they've already been. They are in bondage. This is, we're past the period known as the Babylonian captivity, but really the captivity under the Persian Empire is just Babylonian captivity, just with a nicer name to it. It's just, they're the same distance away. Jerusalem, roughly when the book of Esther is being written, Jerusalem hasn't been rebuilt yet. The books of Ezra and Nehemiah haven't been written yet. The events of Ezra and Nehemiah haven't happened yet. We think. Let me preface that with we think, because like I've been saying from the beginning, we're not sure who the king is, but most scholars agree Ezra and Nehemiah haven't happened yet. There's no Jerusalem to go back to. So the Jewish people are still scattered to the four winds. And they're all about to be killed. And so that's what Esther is pleading for. That's what Esther is pleading about, because they are at the mercy of the king. They're at the mercy of the king, and the king granted Haman the right to kill this whole group of people.
But Esther must have been feeling like a Mexican junkie being inside. Yes, 2 days, waiting for the timing.
This isn't the first piece. This is what gets to me. This is the second piece. This is the second thing. Yes,
Well, it's really about the perspective of wording, especially when you first look at what put the Jews' situation in the first place. It's the way that they worded the situation towards the king, and the king was like, okay, we should get rid. It's the wording. So it's just like when they first proposed what's going on and how they come to this dilemma, then the king was like, oh, okay, we should kill them. But when Esther does reveal what it is that they propose to him, it makes such a difference, because most people don't think about certain things that they're doing till they can relate to it. And once they relate to it, they see the magnitude of affliction they can cause on certain scenario.
Absolutely. Shelley, you have something?
So I've always thought it was interesting, kind of strange that she doesn't tell him at the first feast. It says come back for a second feast. But also I know that in a lot of cultures, there's kind of this culture of when somebody asks you, do you want something? Can I eat something for you? Do you want some coffee?
first request was
in the presence of the king when she goes into the king's presence and invites him to dinner. Second request was to come to dinner again, and then the third time is when she finally comes out with the request. And I want to come back on that because this is such a powerful moment in not just in the book, but in just canon of literature, where the king, whoever this king is, we know in history the Persian kings. They are ruthless, they are savage. When they lead armies, the armies that they lead literally drink rivers dry. That's where the phrase comes from, was from this king's armies. And so to him, abstractly telling Haman to go get rid of these people, to go, I'll pay for it myself, you go off and you destroy these people. In his mind, it's an abstract. It's the Stalin quote. One death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. And that's kind of what we see right here, is in his mind, it's a statistic until Esther comes before him and says, me and my people are about to be annihilated. I like the use of that word there, because it's not just we're about to be killed. She uses that we are about to be killed, we are about to be destroyed, and we are about to be annihilated. And it's such a powerful use of wording there when she talks about the people being annihilated. This is a group of people that is already scattered throughout the kingdom. They have already been scattered away from their homeland. We know by this time from the historical record, the Jewish people are as far away as Egypt up into modern day Turkey and Greece. This is taking place in modern day Persia. We know of Jewish communities as far away as the Persian Empire exists at this time. And just that they are scattered, they are away from their homes. And now they're about to be destroyed. Everything that they have, their history, their culture, is about to be destroyed. And when that happens, it's a history that's lost. It's a history that goes away, and we don't remember it whatsoever. I'm reading another book right now talking about the Viking era. This is just completely off topic for a moment, if you'll allow me a slight tangent here. Talking about the Viking era and talking about some of the peoples who lived in Scotland at the time, known as the Picts. They didn't really have much of a writing system at the time when the Vikings showed up. They didn't really have much of a literary tradition like the Scots or the Irish or the English did at the time. And so when the Picts were destroyed, when they were colonized and when they were driven out of their place, when they were killed, we have nothing left of the Pictish people. We have nothing left of this people that goes back to the time before Julius Caesar shows up in England. We have a whole race of people that are just wiped out, vanished, and we have nothing left of them. Not even place names, not even cities using that language. It's just gone. And that is what Esther is talking about. That's what she's talking about when she says that her people will be annihilated, just gone. Nothing left to remember them by. Nothing left to remember them. And it just using just that powerful, that deeply emotional and affecting language in the presence of a king who has annihilated people, who's probably by this point, either him, his father, or his grandfather has ordered the marching of troops to far-off places for nothing more than a slight against his honor and a revolt against his rule. That's entirely that's what the Greek and Persian wars, the Battle of Thermopylae, the Battle of Salamis and Marathon, was just because the Greek people sent over 20 ships to fight in a war against Persia, and all that death and destruction was because of those 20 ships. And so we've seen in Queen Esther's plea for this, making that statistic into a tragedy, bringing that down to a human level. And we see the king acting like we expect him to act, like we've seen him act before when he's told bad news. He gets angry. He storms out, and then when he storms back in, he sees Haman trying to beg and plead for his life with Queen Esther. And just want to bring this back around again. What does the king ask?
In my house.
In my house. Yeah. And
Again, the king, again, it's one of the advisors to the king, one of the eunuchs that's attending the king at the moment that says, hey, so Haman had this gallows built. It's pretty big. And that's when the king orders Haman to be killed. Just wanted to bring it back around again because, again, we see the king is reliant on his advisors. The king is listening to the advice of other people. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. This time, good, because Haman is killed.
It doesn't just say, even though the long hours, he said, even though the long hours for Mordecai, who you honor.
Right.
And then he had the audacity to build a gallows for him.
Yeah.
So that's also added more.
And she explained how cruel he is.
yeah. Yes.
You should have gone up and torn them down.
He brought the light.
He didn't have enough time. It says at the beginning of the chapter, they were still talking about what that idea was to go out and work at. And right as they were talking about that, he goes off to the second page, and he didn't have time to regret his actions.
I have an appreciation for the irony that Mordecai's wife called it, you have begun to fall before Mordecai. He fell before Esther, and that was what was misunderstood. She meant figuratively fall, he just literally fell.
Yeah.
And his sons, that's the sad part.
We're going to get into that next week, but yeah, this is not we'll see next week. I don't want to get too much away, but we'll see next week that this is not just Haman's call, and this is not just Haman's punishment. Yeah.
I don't want to be too morbid or stay on it too long, but the eunuch is quite clever.
Yes.
Barry has made some comments about being shrewd. And a few people made comments about our day-to-day interactions, we have to be shrewd. And I think this eunuch is certainly one. So looking through Esther, I don't think anybody ever tells the king what to do, because I don't think you can tell the king what to do. But they are very good at giving them the right bits of information at the right time. And the eunuch is very clever. He said, by the way, here's this. And he's also the one who saved you. And then the king immediately says, I got an idea. Let's make it work. So, and you see that a few times throughout where people are planting ideas. But anyway, just very shrewd on the part.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to me. You got a Bible full of very strong rulers and leaders that have never really had a hard time making decisions. It's all over the Bible. And with Haman and Xerxes, we have two guys that really seem, maybe you don't tell the king what to do, but he's very easily swayed. And then Haman goes to his friends and he gets his plan together from his friends. So it's very interesting that the book of Esther is so full of the leaders that are so easily kind of manipulated.
I see where you're going with that. I mean, you can kind of
broach that out to just about every character in this book except for one. There's one character who is solid, who knows what he wants and knows what needs to be done to do that, and that's Mordecai. Mordecai is the only character in this book that's not either needing some sort of a pep talk or needing some sort of advice or needing some sort of push to do the right thing or push to go in the right direction or push to go in the wrong direction. Yeah.
Add to that after she did get her pep talk, Esther is also that way.
Yes.
She has, and she taught me this lesson this week in that, you know, one of the last things we thought we heard her say was, you know, well, I don't want to Mordecai, and he gives her that pep talk, and then she just asked, let's pray and let's fast. What she's doing then in the background, she's preparing. She is not simply sitting on a chair praying and fasting. She is working, as we find out. She's just prepared a 2-day feast for the king and a lunch before it. So she is active in her prayer life, and she is prepared for the positive result. And I think she just taught me so much to be prepared, to be active, and proactive about it. So I mean, she's the hero. It's very good.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting to know how the unit volunteered information. There's no, there may be implications that there were other testimonies given, but the text seems to indicate he chose to offer this information that unit himself already knew about, but he did not, and after that point he remained silent, which to me implies that he was definitely not on the inside. It indicates that he made himself unpleasant to the followers.
Well, the text says Esther had made herself pleasant to everyone.
Yes.
They see a lot of court politics in this. They see a lot of the eunuch who's giving this information to the king about Haman's gallows. Really quick on the hunt with the information. Okay, Haman's back, Haman, hey. There's gallows over there. There's gallows that Haman does pay. And yeah, you really see a lot of just this whole court politics, court intrigue, and a lot of inner workings of the court with just various advisors. There's a certain level of advisor, there's another level of advisor, and you get a feel for who all is on there.
You pointed out several times that this is on the mega book.
Yeah.
So it's read every year. And, I mean, it's publicly read, the entire book. It's publicly read every year along with Ruth and Lamentations and Ecclesiastes. I think that explains a lot about the nature of Judaism and the way that they have survived, even the destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman Empire, even survived God destroying Mosaic Judaism. And one of the things that I admire about Old Testament Jews is that we know so many of them are idolatrous, but they out of that Babylonian captivity, as bad as it was, the denomination by the Ptolemies and the Seleucids and the Romans, and subsequently, they didn't change horses for another god. They didn't blame God for the fact these things are happening to them. And you don't see any of that despair in Esther. You know, God is not mentioned, but he's there in every verse. And we've been trained to see him at work, and it's clear, all things are mentioned today at exactly the right time. And these are people who have before and will continue to, when faced with an existential threat, not that will brace themselves. Like Habakkuk, the end of the book of Habakkuk, the Babylonians are on the way. I'm shaking in my boots, but even if the fig tree doesn't blossom, there's no grapes on the vine, I'm still going to worship God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego for Nebuchadnezzar. We see that here with Esther and Mordecai as well. I mean, there's that it's a tenacity of faith. I see that in all the books of the Megillah. And I think it explains a lot historically about Jewish people.
There's something to be said there. I mean, there's just this unshakable faith that Esther has here. This unshakable faith that whatever happens will happen. And, you know, it's, if you're making the movie today, Esther is probably trembling as she makes this speech, as she makes this plea. She's probably trembling before the king, because the king has already made his decree. The king has already made his proclamation law. He has sent that proclamation out to every corner of the empire. And she's here pleading to stop it. Her knees may be shaking, but her faith is not in this moment. She is absolutely prepared. She is absolutely ready for whatever happens. Yeah.
She's the opposite of Haman. But she's humble.
Yes.
She is humbly appealing to having him realize and assess the implications that I don't think he put that much attention to when he signed the decree to begin with. You know, he sees the gravity of the situation. Because how does it make it look that he has his own wife, he allows this to happen, and then it's just very persuasive that her appeal was so humble.
It's the humility of Esther and
The arrogance of Haman that are just so contrasted in this book here. We see Esther even when she's making this plea, she is being humble before the king. She is, she's been offered the standard offer of whatever the king gives, up to half my kingdom. It happens so often in this book that you think he's had it stamped on a letterhead or something. And then you see up until this last chapter, you've seen the arrogance of Haman. Even into this current chapter, Haman's first thought when the king runs out in a rage is, the queen can save me. The queen who I am about to kill can save me. You just gotta wonder about the thoughts that are going through some people's minds. And for Haman, he's more acting on instinct. He's more acting out of self-preservation than anything else, you gotta think. Like I said, he hasn't had time to regret his actions from before. He hasn't had time from the parade with Mordecai and the scolding from his friends and his wife saying, "Told you this is a bad idea," and then this is immediately what happens afterwards. Yeah.
Well, Haman has been the king's main man for some time now. He knows that the king only acts on what other people tell him to act on. But up to this point, Haman has been that one in that position of power to tell the king what to do. And that balance of power just dramatically shifted. So it makes a lot of sense that he's going to Esther maybe for his life. Because that's the person who's now in control of the king.
I don't think it's control. I just think I think it's persuasive. It's persuasion because a lot of people in this book have persuaded the king to do one thing or another. So I think it's all about persuasion.
He's the one that has the king's ear.
Yes, that's what we're doing. It's not necessarily commands, not necessarily control, it is persuading. Persuading who has the king's ear, who can tell, who can whisper in the king's ear, who can whisper the loudest. Does that make sense? So, at the end of the day, Haman is dead. We've heard the phrase posted on his own guitar. Well, he's been hanged on his own gallows. And we'll get to the fallout and just what all happens
After starting next week. Before next week, as you're reading in Esther, as you're reading chapter 8, if you are reading, then great, thank you. But as you read Esther chapter 8, also flip back. Do me a favor, flip back and read 1 Samuel chapter 15. We're going to come back to Saul and Agag next week as we talk about the fallout of Esther and Haman. All right. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Together in spirit, in faith and unity, where the bonds of peace, of acceptance and love are the fruit of His presence here among us. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out His word till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for He dwells in the presence of His people. he dwells in the presence of his people. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out his word, till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for he dwells in the presence of his people. For he dwells in the presence of his people. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise